Welcome to the Gyms Podcast. I'm your host, Joel Kleber, and this podcast is designed to share stories of our franchisees, franchisors, Jim himself, and other members of the Gyms family that we think you might find interesting. If you are researching our brand, we've got a previous back catalogue. There's so many great episodes that you can find online. And if you do like what you hear, please make sure you leave us a thumbs up on YouTube if you're watching, or online as well. We really do appreciate the support. Without further ado, here's today's episode.
So today we're joined by Tony from Jim's Building Inspections, who's been with us since 2015, and your Jim's Building Inspections Runaway Bay, and you've got more than 100 ratings at an average of 4.9 stars, which is a great achievement. So on behalf of Jim's Group, we'll just get this out of the way, which we're going to present you with the Accor Silver membership, which is worth around $600, $700. You get a couple of free nights at any Accor hotel around the world, and you get a bunch of discounts on restaurants and drinks. And I'm sure there's some nice places up where you can use it. So on behalf of Jim's Group, thank you for being a star franchisee, and we'll get that to you after this interview as well.
Thank you.
No worries. Now, what were you doing prior to Jim's Building Inspections, Tony?
I was a construction manager, building supervisor. I'm a builder. I'm a licensed builder in Queensland and New South Wales, or I was. I'm no longer with the New South Wales building licensing system. I'm just up in Queensland now. So, I've just been carpenter all my life, basically. So I've been building for 3 years, basically. So, yeah.
And what's your thoughts on what's happening at the moment with the building industry? There's a lot going on, and unfortunately, it seems to be, you look online, there's some building company collapsing every day at the moment. So,
look, it doesn't surprise me. I think these big companies, they got too much going on. They cannot keep control of everything, and it's gotten out of control. They try and do too much too quick, and it's just gotten out of control. Not to mention price rises, COVID, of course, put a big dent in a lot of building things. So you'll tend to find a builder that may only do 3 or 4 jobs a year. He'll still be going. He'll still be making money. There's too much hierarchy in these big building company systems. And that's where the problems are. There's too much. They have to make too much money to cover their costs. And they just can't get the turnover. They can't keep up with it. And the price rises, of course, put a big dent in all that. So.
With your experience as well, so in 2015, was it just something where you wanted to get off the tools, and how did you come about Jim's Building Inspections, and why did you choose that as an option for yourself?
Well, 2015, I was looking to do something else. I was working for a good friend of mine. He's a builder down northern New South Wales, southeast Queensland area. We were building big homes, massive homes, like $3 million projects. But I was just getting sick of it, to tell you the truth. You just go to work all day, you butt heads with other tradespeople that want to cut corners all the time. I just had enough. So I just decided, well, I need to find something else to do. And I've always been interested in building inspections, that sort of thing. I was also looking at one stage many years ago to become a TAFE teacher.
Okay.
I actually qualified to do that. So I passed all that, but I was never given a position. I was waiting for one to come up, but then that sort of all went by the wayside. Yeah, so I answered an ad for a building inspector on Seek. Turns out it was like a little meeting. So we turned up at the Lone Star Tavern. It was actually Sam Robinson, Suzanne, Paul's wife, and they had 3 or 4 other guys there. I was the only one that took up the idea of becoming a Jim's Building Inspection after they pitched it to me. And and took it all from there. Went down and did the 3-day course, me and my wife, and really liked what we saw, liked the way gyms go about things. The backup that you have associated with gyms, and our division. Our division is excellent in that sort of department. So, I just thought it was a no-brainer.
And how's the business been for you over the last 8 years? How have you found it?
Really good. Look, it can be quite hard work at times. It's very quiet at the moment, but for the most part, it's good. I enjoy what I do. I think I'm pretty reasonable at it. I just like it. I just like the whole backwards and forwardsing with clients, liaising with builders, that sort of stuff. It's great. So,
and with your service rating, what's you as good customer service? How do you let's walk through the process with you when you get a lead, just to outline what the service standards is for you to get such good ratings all the time.
So, I actually got a lead this morning, and I will end up getting that job. It was a lady looking for a new construction inspection for her daughter who's overseas. So I like to run through the process, what I do, how we go about it, explain to them my, qualifications so that they're not. See, a lot of people don't realise that all building inspectors in Queensland are a licensed builder or equivalent, whereas other states, it tends to be vary in that idea. So I just run through my qualifications, what I do, what I've done in the past. I try and allay any fears they might have about moving forward with the outlay of getting an inspection. Try and let them know they're not wasting their money. It's actually money well spent, and let them know moving forward how the process will work. There'll be pre-inspection agreements that I'll have to send out, invoices, that sort of thing. Then usually pick up the job and turn up, make sure everything's right on the day, do all my processes when I get there. It's really quite simple. It's not that hard. As long as people know what's happening, that's all they want to know. Say if moving forward I talk to the building supervisor, I'll ring the client and let them know. Then that way, if they get a call from the supervisor, they already have that info. And it's all about just backwards and forwards communication, basically.
And what type of inspections do you do in your business? It's a lot of inspections your division can do. So what ones do you find yourself doing more often than not?
Well, the most we do is pre-purchase inspections. I only do pre-purchase building inspections only, but I do offer a building and pest inspection service where I will engage a pest inspector to do that for me. Now, I've got a great relationship with Jim's Termite and Pest Control. I work quite closely with John Grant, who's the franchise board up here in Queensland. I did a job with him yesterday, actually, and all his guys, like Rob Cridlin, Denny Jung. That's just to name a few. So I'll engage one of those guys if I can. If they're not available, I'll then engage someone outside the Jim's group. So I pre-purchase, then I do dilapidation inspections. I've done 5 of those this week.
Can you just talk about what a dilapidation inspection is and who needs it?
Well, basically, the dilapidation inspections I've just done were for a set of units, townhouses. There's 5 of them all joined together. Next door, they're going to start building a similar construction, 10 units, but it's going to be bigger. But they're going to drive in 120 piles, timber piles.
Wow.
Down to 25 or 27 metres. It's up on Brisbane Bayside. So the ground there it's basically like soup. So it's old mangrove swamps that have been covered over the years and decomposed and all that sort of thing. So the dilapidation inspection is a snapshot in time of somebody's property that might be affected by some kind of building works next door. I'll mark down any cracking, any sort of deterioration of the property. That all goes on a report. Now, say if there's a crack in a lounge room wall, it might just be a minor movement crack at the moment. If that gets bigger, you can then safely assume it's because of the vibration or the works next door that have caused that to get bigger. And then the client can then make a claim against the builder, go and see him and say, hey, your works are starting to upset my building. We need to get that rectified when you finish. So that's what it's for. It's a bit of an insurance for the person against earthworks or construction works nearby. You can also do them for like tenant. You might be an investment property, so you can get a dilapidation inspection of the building, of your property before a tenant moves in. And if there's any damage done by the tenant or whatever, you've got it all recorded that it was all okay before you started. Yeah, so basically it's just to cover yourself. Yeah, I do asbestos inspections, asbestos clearance certificates. I've done 2 of those this week, actually.
Well, how common is asbestos then, Tony? Maybe do you want to just educate people a little bit about it who might not think they've got asbestos in their home. So how common is it across what you do?
It's quite common up here in Queensland because a lot of homes here are, the old Queenslander type homes. A lot of asbestos in those. There's a lot of asbestos roofing up here in Queensland. The Super 6 corrugated fibro roofing. They say it's probably 1 in 3 homes has some kind of asbestos in it. So anything built before 1989, there's a fair chance it's got asbestos in it. They stopped making asbestos in 1985. but they gave them sort of 4 years they gave the building industry 4 years to stop using it, and as well as manufacturers to do a changeover into get rid of their old stocks and go into the new, like cellulose fibre type sheetings. So anything built before 85, there's probably a good 90% chance there's asbestos in that building of some kind, be it a sheeting, like a pipe lagging. It could even be as simple as the cord around the door in a fireplace, that on a glass door on a fireplace, that cord that seals the door shut, that can contain asbestos. Flue pipes, it is quite prevalent up here in Brisbane, Queensland. So.
Now, if you identify that, what's the next step? So you identify this asbestos. How do you assist the client, or what's the process for them?
Well, it basically gets down to them. They can opt to leave that asbestos where it is. If it's in good condition and it's what we call encapsulated, so it might be painted, not damaged, so there's no fibres exposed or whatever, they can leave that in position. Say down the track a tradesman comes there to do some work, they've then got a report that tells them what's asbestos, what's not. The tradesman can then opt to take precautions to either drill a hole in that asbestos or something like that. Other people might opt to remove it. So I'll recommend a removalist, an asbestos removalist, to do that work. That's probably the best option. Most people get an asbestos inspection if they are going to do some kind of renovating. Because a tradesperson might have gone there already to do a quote, and they might say, well, you might need to check this. It could be asbestos. We need to make sure that we're safe, you're safe. So I'll go there and take some samples, get that tested, or do an inspection of the property, a visual inspection, and say, yeah, that's asbestos, that's not. Yeah, so it's just to, keep everyone safe, really. Even it's a good thing. But clearance certificates are another thing. That's where I go to a job after the removalist has been. I'll check his work, make sure there's no asbestos pieces, dust, that sort of stuff that he's left behind. Then we'll issue a certificate to say that the area that was designated to be removed is clear of asbestos. Even though sometimes you might do a house, they might only do one room. So there'll still be other rooms in a property that have asbestos in them. But we're only clearing a designated area that's been put on the clearance certificate. It's a particular area only. And all that information goes on there. And that way everyone can move forward. That certificate, then everyone can move back in. Tradesmen can then come in and do their work knowing it's all clear.
Awesome information there. And let's talk about, when should someone get a Jim's building inspector involved? Like, obviously, properties are very, like almost a hobby for some people in Australia. There's always investments going on, people buying stuff. So if they're thinking about buying stuff, when do they come and contact someone like you?
They'll usually contact me after they've signed a contract with a real estate agent. So they'll go out and look for their dream home or whatever. They'll then sign a contract with the agent, subject to building and pest and a few other bits and pieces. They'll then call me, and then we just get it organised and get them the report prior to that contract period expiring. So quite often with a contract, a building and pest clause in the contract for the sale may only be 7 days, even though they were given 28 days. The contract might be for 28 days. The building and pest inspection clause may only be for 7 days. So we need to get that done quickly. We tend to find 7 days is probably a bit short sometimes, but we do manage to get it done. We'll manage to squeeze them in right or wrong, just so that they can move forward and get their sale organised, whether they like the result of the inspection or whether they don't, they can then pull out of the contract, which in that case, say a client does pull out of a contract based on a building and pest inspection report, the client then has to present those reports to the agent and the vendor so that they can see it as well. They can see that, they've pulled out based on a legitimate excuse, which then could help the vendor in the future. He might say, well, that's not good. I didn't know that. I'll get that fixed. And the next time it may be a different scenario with the report. It won't be so damning. So it can work for everyone, that type of report. It benefit not just the client,
but the vendor as well. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So with your business over 8 years, what have you enjoyed about it, or what have you found about it that's kept you motivated to do it? Is it the type of work you're doing? You enjoy it, as you said before, or lifestyle, or what do you like about the business?
Oh, look, don't get me wrong. You have your bad days. You have your days where you think, but for the most part, it's good. I just like it. I'm good at it. I do know a little bit about building.
40 years experience. I think customers are very lucky to have you when they come to your house. And I love having someone like you on to talk about with your experience, because sometimes, unfortunately, with customers, they might know of Jim's Mowing and then there's building inspections. They don't realise how much qualification and experience you guys might have sometimes. So when someone engages you, they're getting 40 years of a builder. Like it's a fantastic, like a high quality person in regards to probably can't get anyone more experienced than you coming to assist them.
Well, that's right. But in saying that, I still learn something new every day. Even like yesterday, we came across something we've never seen before. And
really, in 40 years?
Yeah. There was the house we went to yesterday, John and myself, we were doing a vendor inspection. So it's a pre-sale inspection. Down low in the walls, there was a round plastic disc which had like a screw head on them. And we're wondering what they were. So I said, well, let's unscrew one and have a look. So we've pulled it out, and it's actually like a string. And on the end of that string, there was a piece of timber. And all we can put that, we've never seen it before. And John's a very experienced man. He's never seen it before in the pest side of things. So like I say, you learn something new every day. The best we could figure out eventually is that's a kind of pest, timber pest. You pull that out. If that's been nibbled at by termites, you can then, obviously there's termites in that area where they put these. They're concealed inside the timber wall area. So that's something new. We never worked, but instead of just, when I got home, I chased that up. I tried to chase up what that was. And Brett Goodlook, another Jim's Pest guy over in Ipswich, he said he's come across something similar. But, just things like that. But you learn about new standards, new building standards, that sort of thing. They're always forever updating those. So we need to keep on top of that, which is where the QBCC comes into it. They have good information of amendments to standards, that sort of thing. There's a lot of standards that a lot of people don't know about, like just little things, like there's an actual standard for putting in a range hood in your kitchen. But
really? Okay.
Yeah, but nobody knows. Not too many people know about that standard existing. Not even the builders. 90% of the homes I go to, the range hoods aren't hooked up properly, or they're not venting properly. I don't know how many times I've been to a house. There's a range hood, like a recirculating range hood above a stove. They'll pull out tight. Some of them aren't even vented at all. They're just sucking up into themselves. What are you thinking? So you come across a lot of that sort of stuff all the time, and that's where it's good to have a standard that you can point people to. You can say, hey, there is an actual standard for this, AS 4386.2. That's how much I come across it, because I know it by heart. And that helps them too, moving forward. It's, I just enjoy what I do.
That's great. And then, over your time, Tony, is there a customer story that stands out? Like, is it, have you saved, based on your reports, you've saved someone a bit of heartache from purchasing something, or is there some stories that stand out to you over time?
I've saved we've saved quite a few people, myself and my pest guys, especially with termites. Termites, a lot of people might have termite damage in their house and they don't even know. Then we'll find it. And then sometimes the extent of the damage is that bad. It could cost like hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix. So they're the good stories where you go to a place, it might be a first home buyer. They're the best ones, like first home buyers, and you save them from making a big mistake. That's the best part. Look, I don't really have a story I can come up with, but I do know of many times we've saved someone from making a big mistake purchasing a property that they shouldn't. Plus, in a flood zone, for instance. Well, here's a story. We did a building inspection over at Ipswich a going back before the big flood, recent big flood, the latest one. But these people went ahead and brought the property. While I was there, I pulled them aside and said, look, this area floods. There was a bit of damage in the house already because they get that's from the previous flood in 2012 or whatever it was, the big one that came through Brisbane. You could see flood damage sometimes. I've actually seen tide lines inside roofs where you can see the muddy water had reached past the ceilings into the roof. And a lot of those are out at Ipswich. So explain to these people, look, this is a flood zone. Not a good idea to buy this building because I do know that this area has flooded before. But anyway, they went ahead and brought the property. And late last year, they called me again because they brought another property. And I said, oh, you had the property down at such and such on the river. And they said, yes, you were right. We shouldn't have brought that. I did try to tell you at the time. So, you get those sort of things as well. People do go ahead and buy a place, then they'll come back and say, well, you were right.
At least they had the information. Like, even though they don't really listen to it and when they should, at least they've got the information,
That's right. It's just more give people an idea of, whether they make a mistake sort of thing. Look, for the most part, all the sales go through, but they also have extra information on those reports where they might move in and say, well, we need to fix this, and this, because we've picked it up on the report. A lot of it might just be minor defects, little things like a blocked drain outside, broken pipe somewhere or things like that. So,
And how's the support, Tony, for your division been over the years?
Excellent. I've got great franchisors up here, David and Helen Brunner. They've always been available every time I've needed some help. I don't bother them much. I must say I've not ever had to bother them. When I first kicked off up here, there was no actual franchisor living in the area. Paul was the franchisor doing it based out of Melbourne. So that was going back a while. There was only 3 of us up here at the time. 2 of those guys have left. So I'm the last of the originals, basically. So,
and what's your advice to maybe someone looking to get out of the building game and maybe do something else? And is it a good option for them to come into Jim's Building Inspections, you think? Obviously, you've done that. So what's especially now, like it's very dicey with what's going on. So
you just got to be brave enough to dip your toe in the water. That was the thing I found. I was a bit hesitant to start with the outlay and the cost and all that. But that was quickly recovered within the first couple of years. I more than covered that outlay. My best advice to them is you're not going to come in there and, kick goals straight away. It's going to take you 3 years. I tell people it'll take you 3 years before you get to a point where you're well established, you're making good money, you've got good contacts, because along the way, in those first 3 years, you get to learn how to weed out the people that aren't good for your business, as well as retain the people that are good for your business. My first couple of years, the first 12 months, I used to go around and try and butter up basically real estate agents and that sort of thing. But I found I was just wasting my time. The people you really need in your court are conveyancers, solicitors, mortgage brokers, insurance brokers, people like that, where they are acting on behalf of a client's best interests, whereas a real estate's actually acting on the best interests of somebody who's selling the property, not the person buying it. They're more interested in getting a sale than not. But don't get me wrong, not all the real estate agents are like that. But I find that after I do a few inspections for them and it comes back a little bit damning of a property, so to speak, they soon stop.
Yes,
Standing your work, because you're basically preventing a sale for them sometimes.
And how did you get involved with, let's say, conveyancers and finance brokers and stuff like that? How did you build your network with those people?
Basically, B&I. B&I was a good thing for me. I'm not in B&I anymore. I tend to find now it takes up a lot of time, B&I. You might have a meeting once a week, but there's also other criteria you have to do outside of BNI. You know, they have goals in BNI. You have to do a certain amount of thing every week, every month. I just wasn't getting the time, and I sort of would be sitting in BNI. Towards the end, I'd sit in BNI and I'd be thinking, well, I can be doing a job now and making, you know, $350 or up to $500 or whatever. But I'm sitting here in BNI and I may not get a job today out of BNI. So that's where I had to sort of weigh that up in the end. But originally with BNI, that's where I met up with some good conveyancers, mortgage brokers, that sort of thing. They were really good. They were sending me a lot of work, and they still do. Those same people, even though I've left BNI, I still managed to keep those contacts going because they like what I do. And I also like to send them some work as well if I can come across it, and I still do. Yeah, so that's basically where I came across the idea that, hey, my best option here is conveyancers, solicitors, that sort of thing. So if I'm going to make contact with someone, I might drop in at a conveyancing office if I'm driving past one and drop in a few cards, as long as it's in no one else's territory, of course, which is pretty good up here in Queensland because it's a pretty big place and there's a lot of empty territory. So
Wouldn't be too much overlap, no.
no, but I do know where all the other guys are and what their territories are. So yeah, always good to keep in contact with the conveyancer. Though they want their clients to
Be looked after, absolutely.
cover.
Yeah,
So
for sure. So what I'll do, Tony, is thank you very much for your time today. We'll get this off to you as well, which is the accommodation. It takes around 5 business days. You'll get an email to create an account, and then you'll get a physical card in the mail as well, but you can get a digital card as well. But yeah, no, it's good to use. So on behalf of the Jim's Group, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, and thanks, Acor. I really appreciate that, and thanks, Joel.
No worries.
Say hello to Jim for me.
I will. And I'm sure that the boys going to get a kick out of watching your interview. Sam Robinson and Paul Comerford and all them, the boys, they're going to they'll probably watch this because this is going to be in our podcast. There'll be videos, there'll be clips on the social media and stuff. So they'll probably hopefully share it on their stuff and see us. So they'll see you on that. No worries. See you, Tony. Thanks, mate.
Okay, I'll see you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the episode of the Gyms podcast. If you want to learn more about the Gyms Group, head to gyms.net or call us on 131 546 Australia or 0800 454 654 New Zealand. And if you did like the episode as well, please make sure you leave a review or a comment or a thumbs up or a comment on the video as well. We appreciate your support. And until next episode, we hope you have a great week.